Hello. Our story takes place in France during the time of the Second Empire, around the years 1852 and 1870. Most of the story revolves around trains and the train station. Pretty much everything that happened on a train. We come here today to present a plot summary of Bête, Humaine. Our story begins with Robin and his young wife Séverine. Robin finds out that Séverine has slept with her godfather and guardian, the President Grandormin, who supposedly raised her like a father. In her jealous rage, Robin forces Séverine to help him kill Grandormin. They succeed with only one witness. The engine driver, Jacques Zancier, catches a glimpse of the murder through the passing train's window since the crime occurred on a train. He sees only shadows and silhouettes, but enough to guess what was going on. He's the one to find the body and he calls for help, and is called in as a witness. A little background on Jacques. He lived with his Aunt Faisie, who's convinced that her husband, Missard, is murdering her, which he is and eventually does through poison, and also his cousin Fleur, who has been in love with Jacques for a while now. The really important thing about Jacques is that ever since he hit puberty, he's had a lust for wanting to kill women. He wants to cut them open and have blood everywhere. His body urges him to slice women open, and this feeling comes whenever he sees the skin of a woman, like her neck or her chest. So anyway, Robin and Séverine are horrified to learn that there's a witness and to get Jacques on his side. Robin befriends him and asks Jacques to escort Séverine to Paris, where she will be talking to Monsieur Camille Lamotte, a very powerful and influential minister who was a friend of Grandormin. She asks him for protection against the people who are accusing her and her husband for what they did, and he complies, but lets her know that she and Robin will have to do whatever he says because he has the letter she wrote, and that's hardcore proof of what really went down that night. Meanwhile, Jacques is avoiding Séverine because even though there's something different about her that doesn't exactly make him want to kill her, he doesn't want to take any chances. However, as time passes, Jacques and Séverine begin to develop more intimate feelings for each other and end up in a relationship. Robin is clueless and has Jacques over for dinner all the time, not even knowing that he's adding fuel to the burning passions of the two lovebirds, and Robin actually loses his grip on things and turns to gambling, eventually falling into a great debt. He had begun to desire his wife less, not really wanting her anymore, so just kind of casting her aside, which only sent her running to Jacques, who by now realizes that Séverine has almost cured him of his mental illness he believes to be hereditary. So they're having an affair, and Robin one day catches them, but at this point, he just doesn't care anymore. This works for Jacques and Séverine, who don't have to be quite as careful. They end up going to Paris every Friday morning to spend time with each other, and they always pass Le Croix de Maffei, where Aunt Faisie and Fleur live. Fleur helps signals the train as her job, and she picks up on Jacques and Séverine's affair. She's furious because she loves Jacques and realizes that he'll never love her back. So she does what any woman would do in her situation, and she decides to murder them both. She arranges for an accident, and the train gets in a huge crash. Jacques is badly injured but Séverine survives without a scratch. Knowing that she hears Jacques and all the other innocent passengers on board, but brought no harm to the woman she hates, drives Fleur more over the edge, and she commits suicide by throwing herself in front of a train. Séverine nurses Jacques back to health, and when he's well, she reminds him that she wants him to kill Robin so her and Jacques can run off to America and get married and live happily ever after. She says this before the crash, but Jacques had refused. Now he says he'll do it, and this is the part of the book where we see a huge difference in Jacques. Before he cringed at the thought of murdering someone, but now he's all up for it. The train crash actually woke up the dormant beast sleeping within him, and now he's roaring on the inside, thirsting for blood. Him and Séverine are in her apartment planning the murder of Robin when, whoa, plot twist, Jacques kills Séverine instead. He puts the blame on Caboche. Now, Caboche is a giant man that everyone thinks is a brute, but is actually the kindest person in the world. He's a gentle giant in the novel. He lives alone in the forest, and his only friend was a young girl named Louisette, who was Fleur's younger sister. Louisette actually died at age 14. She was raped and beaten to death by Grandormin, and she had just enough strength to run to Caboche, only to die in his arms. Caboche is the victim of this story. Everyone's always blaming him for everything, when in reality, he wouldn't hurt a fly. He was accused of murdering Grandormin, and therefore used his horse and wagon to place in front of the train to cause the accident. So of course I figured it was him. Sadly, this is where his tale ends, being condemned for the murder of Séverine. Jacques then goes and is caught sneaking around with another woman, Philomene, a friend of Séverine that he was just about to kill when his friend Percu catches them, and Philomene is his mistress, so of course he's upset. The next day, the two show up for work, and they work together. Jacques is the engine driver, and Percu is the coalman/fireman. So they're on the moving train when they get into a fight, and unfortunately, they're so focused on trying to kill each other that they end up falling off the train and get cut up into little pieces under the speeding train. This concludes our story, Bête, Humaine. So basically, Bête, Humaine is about murder and affairs, and this is how it happened.